So welcome. I am Reina-Shay Broussard, and this is the Literary Arts Hour in the Co-Creators Convergence Room, Words as Medicine for the World, here each day of the Up Convergence 2020 at 4 p.m. to 5 o'clock Eastern Time. And we have had a wonderful jam-packed schedule of guests and performers all week. Today, we will start with a spirit spot on the topic of love. Then we have Pamela Jane Gerrand singing Love is All. You don't want to miss this amazing performance. And then poetry as a transformative antidote for our times, an interview and readings with Gina Mazza, author of Everything Matters, Nothing Matters. And I'd like to take just a moment to let you know that we are still getting our bearings a little bit here with some of the technology and transitions. And so there will be a few moments of silence at times as we're transitioning from one element to the next. And I invite you to use those few moments to take a breath and center yourself. Reflect on what's arising in you today and help yourself to be very present to what we're up to and what you want to get out of what we're offering. And just be more accepting if you can of that silence. I know I struggle with it a little bit, and so it helps to just remind ourselves that silence can be a good thing at times. So I will be sharing the spirit spot here in just a moment.
Welcome to the Spirit Spot. My name is Reina-Shay Broussard, and it is my hope to help guide you into your spirit spot, even if just for a few moments out of your day. I invite you to set aside whatever you have in front of you, settle into your seat if you're able, and we'll begin with 3 conscious breaths. Breathe in through your nose, slowly, evenly, deeply, filling your belly, and breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Our touchstone for today is the word love. Our reading comes from the illustrated book of Sacred Scriptures by Timothy Freak. Love is the way. Love is God, and also the way to God. Our essential nature is love, and love is the way to awaken it. The Hindu Mundaka Upanishad teaches that the self cannot be known through thoughts, but only through love. To awaken this love is the goal of life. Love reveals to us a permanent truth beyond the transient nature of this world. From Hinduism, the Mundaka Upanishad, bright but hidden, the self dwells in the heart. Everything that moves, breathes, opens, and closes lives in the self. He is the source of love, and may be known through love, but not through thought. He is the goal of life. Attain this goal. The shining self dwells hidden in the heart. Everything in the cosmos, great and small, lives in the self. He is the source of life, truth beyond the transience of this world. He is the goal of life. Attain this goal. From Buddhism, the Dhammapada, Look how he abused me and beat me, how he threw me down and robbed me. Live with such thoughts and you live in hate. Look how he abused me and beat me, how he threw me down and robbed me. Abandon such thoughts and live in love. In this world, hate never yet dispelled hate. Only love dispels hate. This is the law, ancient and inexhaustible. You too shall pass away. Knowing this, how can you quarrel? From Christianity, the gospel of peace of Jesus Christ. Become perfect as the spirit of your heavenly Father and the body of your earthly mother are perfect. And so love your heavenly Father as he loves your spirit. And so love your earthly mother as she loves your body. And so love your true brothers as your heavenly Father and your earthly mother love them. And then your heavenly Father shall give you his Holy Spirit, and your earthly mother shall give you her holy body. And then shall the sons of men, like true brothers, give love to one another. And they shall all become comforters of one another. And then shall disappear from the earth all evil and all sorrow, and there shall be love and joy upon earth. And then shall the earth be like the heavens, and the kingdom of God shall come. For love is eternal. Love is stronger than death. From Indigenous Religions, a Yoruba proverb from Nigeria. Gentle character it is which enables the rope of life to stay unbroken in one's hand. From Indigenous Religions, a Native American Winnebago precept. See to it that whoever enters your house obtains something to eat, however little you may have. Such food will be a source of death to you if you withhold it. From Confucianism, the Analects. Confucius said, love men. From Jainism, Tattva Sutra. Rendering help to another is the function of all human beings. From Taoism, Chuang Tzu. He who can find no room for others lacks fellow feeling, and to him who lacks fellow feeling, all men are strangers. From Taoism, the Tao Te Ching. In conflict, it is love that wins. Love is the strongest protection. If you have love, it is as if heaven itself were keeping you safe. From Shinto, Tenrikyo. Understand that through saving others, you shall also be saved. From Islam, Sufi Master Rumi. Whether you love the one or another human being, if you love enough, in the end, you will come into the presence of love itself. From Ancient Mystery Religions, Plato's The Symposium. I teach others that human nature can find no better helper than love. I tell you, it is every person's duty to honor love. I especially honor and practice the mysteries of love myself, and recommend others to do likewise. To the best of my abilities, I praise the power of and courage of love. now and always. Our touchstone for today is the word love. I invite you to pause several times throughout your day and reflect on this touchstone, the love that connects us all. And may you create a great day.
Next, we have a song, Love is All, performed by Pamela Jane Gerrand, who is an ardent and acclaimed singer-songwriter, poet, speaker, and sound alchemist. Weaving her heart-opening songs and tone poems, Pamela is devoted to uplifting humanity and raising consciousness with her unique Voicing the Divine Feminine concerts and sound alchemy gatherings. Pamela's wisdom teachings are offered through sacred sound that allows us to quiet the mind and experience the holy beauty of our soul. Pamela is a passionate advocate for peace, social justice, and the healing arts. She travels widely and has performed at festivals across Canada, the US, England, France, Sweden, India, and Costa Rica. She's written original songs and poems for many international initiatives, including the 1,000 Goddesses Gathering in Washington, D.C., and the March for Our Lives. Pamela is an engaged artist activist, actively working with organizations such as Good of the Whole, Co-Creators Convergence, Unity Earth, and Up Convergence. You can find her at PamelaJaneGerrand.com.
Holy wind, blow through me, away my suffering. Sing your truth down to my bones, for love is all, love is all. Holy wind, I'll do my part, make a sail of my heart, bind me to your ship of love. I hear you call, love is all. Sweet Sophia, make us wise. Shakti, fill us with your fire. Oh, Shekinah, make us whole. For love is all, love is all. In a world of war and woe, wash away these tears that flow. Warm our hearts so cold with fear. Draw us near, draw us near. is all.
Wasn't that just amazing? I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Next, we have Gina Mazza. She's an award-winning journalist and poet and author of 3 books in the personal growth category. For decades, she's reported on the good works of New Thought pioneers like Jean Houston, Joan Borysenko, Dr. David Hawkins, Barbara Marx Hubbard, and others, as well as ordinary unsung heroes who make the world a kinder, more beautiful place. As a writing coach, book editor, and publishing and creativity consultant, Gina has helped hundreds of individuals refine their writing projects and find a home for them in the world. She also has a solid background in corporate communications, PR, media writing, marketing, entrepreneurship, and the use of intuitive guidance to elucidate one's work, mission, passion, and purpose. Wow, Gina, she has been busy. Gina experiences writing is a sacred merging with the Creator. Her core passion is dissecting life's mysteries to expose its grandeur. Her latest personal writing project is sharing her original poetry and prose for awakening on Instagram, and she'll be sharing a few of those poems with us today. Gina, you know, we were talking the other day and we were connecting with the title that I've given this literary arts hour all week, Words as Medicine for the World. And that you said that really spoke to you and your brand and the message that you put out into the world. Would you like to say more about that?
I would love to say more about that. And Reina-Shay, I'm so honored and delighted that I get to reconnect with you and talk about literature. It just doesn't get any better than that. So thanks for this opportunity today. Yeah, definitely. We just dove right in, didn't we, with our theme of words as medicine. And of course, we're referring to good natural medicine, right? Not the pharmaceutical kind. The kind that is a potent salve or solution even for our times. And I think that it is extremely important, the words that we use, the words that we speak, and even our thoughts. And you had, I think, Kim Conrad on yesterday that was speaking about the science and the neurology behind this, that our thoughts are energy and they do affect the field. We do create our reality through our thoughts, and words are spoken thoughts, right? There are thoughts in action. So I do think that we are at this time right now where the words that we speak matter more than ever. I think you would agree with me on that. That was the initial conversation that we started out with, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And yes, you mentioned Kim Conrad yesterday. She spoke a bit at length on the power of the words that we speak and words that we choose. And I made a comment yesterday, though, about when we are watching the words that we speak, we want to be careful not to make ourselves wrong for certain words. I prefer to think of it as certain words can be sort of a barometer for us of what our internal state is. So if I find a word pops out of my mouth, sometimes I don't even fully realize what I'm thinking or feeling until a word comes out of my mouth and I go, oh, I just said I have to do this. And then I check in and I go, oh, I'm really feeling in a demand space about this particular task before me or something. And then I can choose to shift my space, but it's not about that the word itself is wrong. It's just an indicator of a space that I might not want to be in.
Yeah, I think what you're speaking about is being conscious of what we're saying and what we're thinking. So that's it requires being in that that space of self-witnessing, or a more contemplative state of understanding our motivations, and why we are speaking certain things or talking about certain things. So I think what you're saying here is super important, that we're at a time when we really need to be very discerning about what it is that we're saying. And that means self-reflection. That means really listening to ourselves and knowing, why we are speaking certain words. I think, again, yesterday, Kim talked about the words should and but and other words that we interject into our vernacular that we're maybe not even conscious of, but they limit us in some ways. And language in general, for how verbose and how beautiful it is limiting in some ways. It's not the be all and end all. Like you said at the beginning of the call, like silence has its place as well. And silence to me is one of the best sounds that there are. I think we do need a balance of the two. Too much talking sometimes leads us in a direction where we're not able to be in that space of self-reflection. We're just getting caught up in the conversation.
Oh yes, definitely. And sometimes lately it feels like we're sort of inundated with the noise coming into us from outside, from the media, and even being on Facebook. You're looking at those words, and there are lots of them, sharing different messages, and it can be challenged to sift through all the words coming at us.
Yeah, again, that's where being conscious and being contemplative is so important, because with this information age that we're in, you can't really get away from it. There's always conversations happening, and it's easy to get ensnared or entrapped in conversations that maybe we don't even want to be a part of, right? And we see that. I mean, I experience that just watching the evening news. I watch it with a certain lens, not so much to take at, verbatim what it is that they're saying is going on in the world, but how they're presenting what's going on in the world and what they're choosing to present about what's going on in the world. And I'm able to kind of witness myself being pulled into the language that is used, even in the first 30 seconds of the headlines. And they're meant to incite and to, as they say in the news media, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So they're wanting to go after that emotion and wanting to entrap you. So again, that's where discernment is the $1 million word, I think, to keep in mind when there's any conversation happening, even online.
Sure. Well, you're talking about discerning, and that makes me think about how we process the words that we hear and see and also think. And I know you're a big fan of journaling, like I am. And a few moments ago, I was talking about how sometimes I don't fully know what I'm thinking or feeling until words pop out of my mouth. And I find that to be never so true as when I'm journaling. I might think I know what I'm thinking about a topic, but when I put pen to paper and the words start flowing, often ideas come out that I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was thinking that. I didn't realize I was feeling that. I didn't know that there was this gem of truth inside me waiting to be revealed. Do you find the same with your journaling?
There is a certain psychological kind of magic that happens when you journal, when you're, and I always recommend paper and pen. I think there's a specific part of our biology that gets enacted when we're actually writing physically, as opposed to being at a computer or on a device. And journaling is, I think, a very important practice to have if you're wanting to increase your level of discernment around your own voice and around your own participation in conversations in the world, because journaling really is self-reflection on paper. I call it rule-line psychoanalysis, because you're able to kind of see what is on your mind and kind of clear your mind of those things. And it's interesting. It's an interesting practice if you do it over time, because you'll begin to see patterns emerge, things that you're focusing on over and over again, maybe things that are frustrating you, or things that are calling you, that are really beautiful and that you're drawn to. It's a great way to increase your level of self-knowledge, because it's really you talking to yourself.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think self-knowledge is a vital step in the unity and peace that we all want to create in the world. We have to create unity and wholeness and peace within ourselves. And I do believe journaling is a powerful tool for that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And as you know, as a writer too, I think that writing in general is an important practice to have. I mean, not everybody's a professional writer, but being able to communicate and have clarity around what it is that you want to say is it's a really important gift to have in life, and a really important skill to have in any situation.
Yeah, and for myself, I can say that I believe journaling has been sort of an intermediary step to creative writing. I did my master's in fiction writing, but more recently, I've found myself sort of spontaneously writing some poetry, coming out of some of the thoughts and feelings that I've been processing. I know you also have I know you were telling me about some recent poetry that you've written. And have you not always been writing poetry? Is that just a more recent thing?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, poetic journey, because I would say that over the course of my life, I have penned poetry, but it was never a serious endeavor. I have published a few poems here and there, and certainly in my prose writing can be poetic in a certain sense, but I never really thought of myself as a poet until the year 2019, last year in the spring, where I had a pretty meta-phenomenal experience where I was waking up in the middle of the night and had a word or a phrase or a sentence or even a wholly formed something or other that was coming into my consciousness. Now, I'm familiar with tuning into higher consciousness and tapping into source and creativity and imagination and all of that. So it didn't freak me out in any way, but this was distinctly different in the sense that when it was occurring, I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know it was poetry. And this phenomenon went on for, 3 to 6 weeks, where I would just wake up and turn on my handy dandy Apple voice memo and just kind of speak it and fall back to sleep, and speak it and fall back to sleep. And I ended up with a pretty hefty file that I didn't know what to do with. So a client of mine who's an esteemed poet and has done a lot in the realm of poetry, I asked her if she would just read some of it, and she did, and she was highly encouraging about what she read. And so I was prompted to start sharing it, because I was very clear that the poetry wasn't for me. It was coming through me, but it was for others to read. And it's very interesting timing, because this was before COVID and all of the madness that's going on now in the world. one of the poems was actually about a pandemic that it was written. So this was May 2019. So I had this sense that the messages were prescient in some way, and again, not for me. And when I actually prayed about it, and kind of tuned into the essence of this work, and asked it, what will you have me do with you? Because as a published author, I'm like, well, I'll just publish it and then share it. It's like, no, you need to share it. Don't wait. And was instructed to actually do it on Instagram, which to me was at the time an interesting thought, because I only thought of it as a vanity platform. But kind of the message that came across my third eye was, Instagram is a spiritual practice. And so that's what I started to do. I started to actually integrate it into my morning meditation practice, where I would wake up with a poem in my consciousness, or be in meditation and think of a poem that I had already written, and got the kind of the holy order that was the poem to share that day. And so all of my Instagram planning went out the window, and I was staying in the moment with it as it should be, and just sharing the poems on a daily basis as I was inspired to do that.
Oh, wow. Noelle is finding this fascinating, and so am I. Will you share one or two of those poems with us?
Yeah, I figured I would start out with, you and I, Reina-Shay, we went through a number of these and tried to whittle down to what was most important to convey based on our topic here today. And I figured I'd start out with one that just kind of talks about the importance of listening to that still inner voice, and in whatever way. It doesn't have to be in the form of channeling poetry, but it can be in any way, tapping into that still inner voice, and having an appreciation, a profound appreciation for just everything that we do have in life, the beauty and the fact that we are even alive. So this poem is very simply called Get Up and Write. Thunderous skies implore me at dawn, get up and write. Speak of sublimity through every rumbling pore. From wisps of sleep, my eyes awaken, startled as every morning by this dream voyage. Breath alone is miracle. I follow it and wait for that rush of rain in my veins. I give fervor to the wind's soliloquy, some to the trees' sway, and more to the horse's neigh in the neighboring fields. The one I praise lives in all of it. Wind, tree, horse, eyes, dreams, breath, veins, and these words.
Oh, I love that. And it, for me, it connects me back to one of the phrases in the song we listened to by Pamela Jane Gerrand a few minutes ago, when she uses the phrase holy wind. And your poem connects me in my mind to that, or rather in my heart, to the idea of a holy wind that moves through us and in us, and forms creativity and words and poetry and beauty of all kinds of art.
And poetry in particular, I think, is a startling category of words, because it really helps us to speak what is usually unsaid. It's mining to that deeper space, and kind of startling ourselves with what we find there. And that's why I think, number one, poetry is so important for times right now, because, you know, we're accustomed to just sound bites, right? And just scrolling through our screens and not having time to really immerse in anything. We might want to read a beautiful novel, and maybe we do so when we're at the beach one day, if the beaches are open. But we don't really have time for it. So, and again, this was part of the imperative that came through during that time when those poems were starting to channel through me, is that, you know, we need to capture people in snippets. We need to have these little morsels, these little nuggets of wisdom that are very condensed to the point where someone can read just a sentence or a phrase and they'll get something out of it for their day. And it'll do more than just, you know, fascinate or entertain. It will shift you in some way. I like to quote David Whyte. He's one of my favorite poets, contemporary poets. And he says that the poet lives and writes at the frontier between deep internal experience and the revelations of the outer world. There is no going back once this frontier has been reached. A new territory is visible, and what has been said cannot be unsaid. And I feel like that's what poetry evokes. It brings you to a different precipice from which you can't pull back. You have to face it. And in some cases, take a leap of faith into this unknown territory that exists really in our own psyche. You know, everything that's happening out there is happening in here. So poetry brings us back to that and enables us to have that crucial internal conversation that we first need to have with ourselves before we can have clarity of conversation with anyone else. Does that make sense? It's getting a little deep there, but that's how I feel poetry does its work.
Oh yeah, and part of what it makes me think about is how, I mean, sentences and grammar, you know, grammar is certainly a useful tool in helping us to convey ideas, but because poetry doesn't always have to follow the same grammatical rules, and because it tends to focus more on imagery, I think poetry has a unique ability to shift us into the creative side of our brain, and even out of our brains into our hearts. And in our society today, I think so many of us spend so much time in the organized part of our brain, the logical side of the brain, or even with our energy up in our head more, rather than pulling that down into the heart, where we can live from a place that more naturally and easily creates the unity and peace that we're looking for.
Yeah, and it's kind of, you're talking about the mind space. So it is, again, what poetry is so good at, if done right, you know, and done right, meaning that you find the right poem when you need to find it as well. Not necessarily that it's literary or well written, but it can be, you know, an Instagrammer, you know, a micro poet on Instagram writing stuff. It changes your mind space. It has this like ability to just flip you. It's kind of like, if we're following our theme here today of words as medicine, it's kind of like an injection. You know, it's like you get a shot in the vein, and it stops you, and it makes you a little woozy or heady, right? And you're just kind of like, whew, what did that mean? I think I know what that meant. I'm not sure. Let me read it again and again and again. And when you're doing that, it's almost like through osmosis, you are, I like to think of it as an elevation. You know, you're elevating to a higher place of thought and reason and logic and love, you know, as Pamela was so beautifully singing about, bringing you into that higher, more ecstatic space, which I personally, that's where I want to live and like to live, in that higher space. And it's possible to do that, because it's our choice of how we live out our experiences. So I do think that poetry is an apparatus that takes us into that higher space and helps us to stay there longer, so that we aren't mired down by just all of the chaos, that we see going on in the world, that seems so prevalent now.
Mm. Yes. And you mentioned the word love again there just now, and we've got kind of a sub theme of love going on in our session today. And I think too often it's easy for some people the word love can have so many different meanings, and sometimes it feels kind of airy-fairy. But what's been coming home to me lately is love as this true and real and tangible force in our lives. And if we imbue it with that power that it has, then it can make such a difference in the world. It doesn't have to be some airy-fairy, unrelated to reality concept. And I think your poems help to speak to that.
Yeah, I think of it also as compassion. Compassion may be a word that is more, less freighted with different meanings that maybe aren't, of the highest expression. So I think of compassion as what we're going for. As a matter of fact, one of the poems that we chose for today has that word in it. And again, I think that how that equates to poetry is that poetry is this medium that enables us to get away with being radically compassionate. It makes us uncomfortable. It's meant to. If we want to read something airy-fairy, we can go to, a Disney movie or, some other, 7 steps to however. But if you really want to get real with yourself in the world, poetry is the place to go in order to really, again, kind of see those truths being spoken on paper or spoken out loud, and allowing it to kind of enter your body. I feel like poetry is this medium, kind of like music. Of course, I think of music as like sung prayers, right? Sung poetry. It's kind of like music in that way, where the poem kind of enters your body and you have a visceral reaction to it. And that's a great practice to even have when you're reading poetry, to, kind of like when you're imbibing a fine scotch, right? You sniff it and then you let it hit your palate, and then you wait for the finish, right? So poems are like that to me, where you read it, you taste it, you allow it to sort of enter you, and then you sit with it and see what comes of it. And actually, follow that feeling in your body as well. Like, is it in your heart chakra? Is it in your solar plexus? Is it in your head? You can kind of, again, become more self-aware in this way just by reading poetry. Who would have thought, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love how you describe that. Tasting and savoring the poetry.
Yeah, that's how I think of it. And so I'll just go ahead and share this one that we chose, called Habituate Compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Keep choosing love. There's that word, right? Mm-hmm. Keep choosing love until it is rote. Habituate compassion. Be a rebel that way. The most gangster thing you can do is forgive and begin again. Every day, a new step in a positive direction is 2 paces away from Armageddon. Let the sun set on the old ways. By now, we are more than primates. Stop acting so primitive The future, if we have one, is a shimmering footpath to our star destiny. Guarantees are not guaranteed. Proceed as if you have none. Recreate the probability that life will continue instead of the inevitability that it will desist. That, my friend, is true power, a superpower that will end all war and annihilate its necessity.
I love the idea of compassion as a superpower. I also really like that you use the word habituate compassion, and it obviously it's relating to, you know, habit. Make compassion a habit in your life. And when something's a habit, it's hard to undo it, right? But I also, the word habituate makes me think about habitat, to, like, you're telling us to also inhabit compassion. And I like that little, in my mind, it plays a little on those two words with habituate.
That's brilliant. And, you know, Reina-Shay, every time you read a poem, it has a different meaning. And this is part of what's been so joyful for me in sharing these poems, is that the person reading them makes them their own. You know, like, I see in these poems something that it totally escaped my attention until the person reading it read it back to me and explained their interpretation of it. And again, I think that's the power of poetry, is that it's laden with layers of meaning that are highly personal to me, the poet, the person writing it, but also universal to anyone reading it. And that's part of how it has the power to move people and to affect change.
Yes. Noelle has a comment for us. If we had the habit of compassion, there would be more peace and unity on this planet. You're right, Noelle. I knew that this would connect well with our overarching theme of unity and peace.
How much time do we have?
Good question. We have about 7 minutes left. I was hoping you would tell us at least a little bit about your book. I am just so intrigued by the title, Everything Matters, Nothing Matters, because that's actually been a theme that's come up in my own journaling recently, as I have been on a deeper spiritual path of my own. I've been coming to some realizations about, in certain ways, like, none of this matters. And yet my appreciation for the value in life seems to have increased at the same time. So I don't know if that's what your book is about, but that's what it stimulates in me.
Yeah, you know, I wrote that book back in 2008, and it's so interesting that it recently has refound its legs. As a matter of fact, Frank, who's on our call here today, recently had me on his beautiful podcast called Life Altering Events. And we spoke about this concept of everything matters, nothing matters. And I think it's just really, the time is right for this message to be embraced by a lot more people. What I do mean by that is that everything is extraordinarily precious and sublime and graceful and perfect. Even the mundane and even the insane. You know, everything is extraordinarily precious as part of our human experience, and at the same time, ultimately, completely insignificant. You know, when you span out to the level of the cosmos, and you see that we're, you know, this tiny, you know, civilization on this little ball of pale blue dot, as Carl Sagan said. And, you know, we're part of this greater intelligence. And that, you know, for those of us who do believe that our existence goes beyond physicality, that we actually are consciousness and we do go on, and we just change forms, but we continue on. When you extrapolate it out to that level, you really do. I mean, it just was striking to me that none of it does matter. Like, not even saving the planet matters. Like, if we annihilate ourselves, then, oh, well, then we go on into another form of existence, or in some way, you know, life carries on in another form. And you know, that's the harder part to kind of live out, because the appreciation and the gratitude part, we can all understand that. But when you get into the nothing matters part, it's a little bit more tricky to really embrace the entirety of that.
Sure. I think Karen had a comment for you. Are you there, Karen?
I do. So I have a lot of background noise. So just, you know, I think it'll come through. So Gina, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to, I hope my camera will capture this. Gina, I just wanted to let you know that the beaches are open. So if you can see some of that ocean in the background and the vastness of your offering. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Yes, that's beautiful, Karen. Thank you for sharing a little piece of the beach with us and the ocean in its immensity. I think Frank also had a comment.
One of the things, the feedback from the interview with Gina, which was very well received around the world, was the feedback that I got was, if you look at life as a gift, and if you look at whatever happens as something that can be used to make you better, can be used, you can learn from it, as opposed to getting angry because this didn't go my way or someone slighted me. And you look at the big picture, you just pick up the pieces, you keep moving forward, and it really doesn't matter. We had a lot of feedback, Gina, on the doesn't matter side, because it was just, why? Why am I making such a big deal about this? Why is this being something that is so troublesome to me? It's because I choose to make it troublesome to me. Just be grateful, not grateful what happened, but you're grateful for what you can learn. And it was a very powerful interview.
Thank you, Frank, for that feedback. That's humbling and wonderful to know that people are receiving it. I wanted to make the further point that, you know, we do still at this time live in a dualistic society, but I think the real trick of living a sacred conscious life is living the paradox. It's living in, you know, being comfortable in the ambiguity of both, right. That everything matters and everything does not matter at the same time, and just living in that terrain, living on that terrain, and knowing that, you know, as the Buddhists would say, everything's all right already. You know, just knowing that it's all going to be okay, even though it may not look that way. Again, you know, it's tricky to sometimes walk that out, but I think that's why we're here.
Indeed. And all is well. Well, thank you so much, Gina, for joining us today for this exploration of words as medicine for the world. I can't wait to get my hands on your book. And we're out of time, but where can people find your book real quickly?
Amazon. Everything Matters, Nothing Matters. And my poetry is on Instagram. It's Gina Mazza _poetry. And my website is ginamazza.com.
Great. Thank you.